Hello and welcome to TSK F1. My name's Rich, and today we're going to be talking about what Ted Kravitz has said about Mercedes and the W14 into the 2023 season. He's been sharing his ideas and his belief that Mercedes have a full Plan B or Spec B vehicle basically in design now, that maybe when we get to the European rounds of the season, we may well see it if the zero pod idea fails to work for a second season. Now, I'm going to share my opinion on this, my thoughts on this, and I'd love to know your input on this too. So, Ted Kravitz has said to Sky Sports' Craig Slater that he believes that in this season, Mercedes are sticking with the zero pod type of concept, and they believe they have fixed what was the issue last season, because the issue actually was stuff we can't see with the floor and general downforce of the car. But also that they are ready to go a Red Bull or a Ferrari route around the European season a bit later on in the year. Now, my opinion on this is that it's possible, but do I think it will happen? I honestly don't think so. I think it's a very un-Mercedes-like thing to do. Now, we've seen instances of this happening before with teams like Haas or Aston Martin, where they've changed their side pod idea to match more of a Ferrari style in the case of Haas, or more like Red Bull in the style of Aston Martin. But I don't think it's a very Mercedes-like thing to do. You know, they're leaders, much like Red Bull and Ferrari, and they've forged their own way. But if it's not working, then who knows? Maybe they will take that route. My opinion of it is that they would have binned this whole concept if they really didn't think it would work. It strikes me that if you were designing a Plan B or another spec of car, that you're just diluting your development time, right? So they got to the end of the 2022 season, and probably way before that, they knew what they were going to do with this season's car in terms of what they were going to do with what we can see in the side pods. And I feel like they would have scrapped this if they really thought there was no way forward with it. And if they're designing a Plan B type of car as well, then you're just diluting your resources, when really you either put everything into this or you put everything into a Red Bull or a Ferrari type of concept. And yeah, it just means that this would be less of a mature design, and you wouldn't get everything you could get out of it because you've put that design on the other car as well, you know? And that's how I see it. Now, is it possible? Yes, we've seen it on other teams, in other teams and other cars in years gone by, where something has clearly worked or it seems to work, so a team has copied it or tried to copy it. But I think these cars are much more complex than previously in terms of the things we can't see. And we've seen many, many different technical chiefs say this. We've seen Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin all say this. It's the stuff we as viewers can't see that makes the massive difference on these cars, which I guess is all to do with the floor and underneath the floor. Obviously, these side pods do have an aerodynamic change, and I love the variety that we've got in Formula One, that how the Mercedes looks so different to the Ferrari and the Red Bull, and I think variety is really good for the sport. Now, another idea is cost, isn't it? Could they afford it? Now, one idea that I did have was that we've heard Christian Horner speaking about how Red Bull are having to be even more efficient than they have been previously, both because they won the Constructors and because they obviously have their wind tunnel time reduced because of the cost cap penalty, and that they're having to be really, really efficient. And this is another avenue, really, that I've thought of for Mercedes. Now, they've won so many years in a row, and they've had the least amount of wind tunnel time, right? So into this season, they had more, I think. I think that's how it works, right? They had more because they were third, and that carried over into this season, I think. And to me, it's possible. I have no insider information on this, but it's logical thinking for me that because Mercedes have had the least amount of wind tunnel time for years, that maybe they have just extremely mature and efficient processes around design and what they put in the wind tunnel and what makes it to the car. And these are lessons that Red Bull have learnt previously, but are really having to learn quickly again now, by their own admission. And Christian Horner has said it's a great thing for the team. Now, that opens a door for me. If they've got extra time in the wind tunnel, then maybe because of their sort of slightly better processes, maybe, this is just me thinking out loud, that maybe that does afford them a little bit of extra time to maybe look down another avenue of design, and maybe they do have something else going on. But I always look at Mercedes and think that they're a very methodical, process-driven type of team, and for them to change their ethos or what they do with the car mid-season, it just doesn't tally with me. It might happen. Now, the other thing with Ted Kravitz is he said they could go either the Red Bull or the Ferrari route. It just seems an intentionally vague statement that is made, because you're basically saying, yeah, Mercedes could change it to look like one of the cars that was faster than them last season. And it's one of those statements that in 6 months either everyone's forgotten that he said it, or he looks like a genius for saying it. But this is where I'd like your opinion, guys. Do we think that they have a plan B or a spec B where we've got different side pods on the car, or engine covers or front wings maybe? Or do you think they've put all their eggs in one basket and the zero pods are here to stay for the rest of the season? I'm a little bit torn, but I don't think there's a spec B or B spec, anything like that going on. I think Mercedes are in on this and they've decided to concentrate on this. But then again, this is being recorded before the Bahrain test. They may well turn up with some side pods there. Who knows? I don't yet. Please let me know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe the video. I'll see you in the next one.